Putting this on. I'd also like to thank the Vinings United Methodist Church for allowing us to have this meeting here. It was very nice of them. Got a little bit of history on the Vinings United Methodist Church. It was founded in 1873 by Solomon Pace, who's the son of Hardy Pace. The original church was in a house that Solomon owned right at Pace's Ferry and the railroad track. That burned down. They rebuilt another church there, and that one also burned down in the 1940s. And this was a school. This was a Vinings school at that time, and they allowed the church to move here so that they could hold services. And eventually, Cobb County sold this property to the United Methodist Church. So that's kind of the history of how we got here. I want to take a brief moment. I know that this is going to be hard for people to see, especially if you're in the back. But up here, this is a map of the city boundaries of Vinings, the different shaded areas. There's the Home Depot. That's Cumberland Parkway. That's Vinings Jubilee. Each one of the shaded areas is going to be a district of the city or of the city council. And they're different sizes, but they have approximately the same population, which I believe is how that map was drawn up.
Use the microphone.
The microphone is going to record for Cobb TV, but it's not a public address microphone, so I'm sorry. So anyway, this is Pace's Mill, US 41, the Vinings Kroger's right there. That's Canoe. This is the river boundary all the way down along here. This area in here is the Georgia Power Plant. That's the Sterigenics plant. There's South Cobb Drive. This is Atlanta Road that kind of goes up through the middle. This boundary is by a creek. And then the railroad track is the boundary through the area that's kind of considered the Vinings residential area. Anyway, that is basically it. Let's see. This area down here is all city of Atlanta, all the way along here. And then this area is part that's going to remain in unincorporated Cobb County if a city is formed. So with that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Jerica, who's our District 2 Commissioner.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? No. All right, so I'm going to project even more. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Fantastic. So this is going to be our volume level that we're going to have to speak in so that everyone can at least engage. And when we answer questions, you can hear the answers that we provide. So yes, I'm your District 2 Commissioner, Commissioner Richardson. Excited to be here because community is absolutely important to me, making sure that we're engaged, making sure that we have information, the best information that we can have to make good decisions for ourselves and our families. So what I would like for everyone to make sure of is that's what our focus is for tonight. We are trying to get the information and ask the questions so that we can get to whatever answer you're looking to get to. We are not here to create any kind of stance that will be, reiterated. I'm sure you guys will help keep us honest too, to make sure that we're not slipping down that. But this is all about answering the questions that you ask us. We're here to serve. So with that, we have the county here, county representatives, all behind me on the side. We also have a representative from the state. Eric Allen is here, and he is also your representative. He is part of the reason that he's here is to answer any questions that you may have regarding the charter or the process or however it was done in chamber. And so you have that resource here as well. We are here to just provide that venue for you and answer those questions. And I certainly extend a deeply felt thank you to all of those that host the church. Vinings HOA certainly has had a role in helping organize this. And your care. The fact that you're here means you care. That's where we're all starting from. So with that, I do want to make sure, just so that we're all operating, because Vinings is unique for me. the Vinings area. And that is because there is something called the Vinings vision. Hands up just to know how many people are aware of the Vinings vision. Fantastic, fantastic. That is the commitment to doing this, and certainly if there are probably people in the room that worked on the Vinings vision. If those can raise their hand. Fantastic. Can you all give a round of applause? It's a true model. It's a true model for how communities can come together and engage in order to determine what they want for their areas. And so we really hope that as you're making these decisions, you're also referring to what changes you are interested in seeing, what changes you're not interested in seeing, and regardless of how this vote goes, that's a conversation that has to continue. So please make sure that if you're not aware of it, do get yourselves familiar with it. If you are aware of it, ask those questions as well. But without too much further ado, I want to introduce our chairwoman who helps lead our county amongst the Board of Commissioners. And so please come up and just share a few words.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank all of you for being out here today. I'm a bit of a low talker, so I feel like I need to walk up and down the aisle as if this is a motivational type speech. Maybe I'll motivate some of you to do one thing. I might motivate some of you to do another. But I do want to at least make sure that I'm heard. And unfortunately, if I speak much louder than this, I'm going to feel like I'm yelling at you. And certainly that's not my desire here tonight. I thank all of you for being here. We are here to, again, as Jerica said, help to educate you, but also help to answer your questions. And we've been on this, journey for the past few weeks to make sure we have an ability to answer a lot of the correspondence that we have been receiving from citizens in the county. We've been receiving questions, everything from why is the county doing this to us, perceiving that the county is the one that's initiating these cities, to why is this happening so quickly, what is going to be the impact, what are you going to do to my schools? And we felt that we could not be passive, recognizing that when cityhood movements start, that they are typically grassroots initiatives. They are not started by city officials, county officials. They are started by residents like you who want to see a change in their community, perhaps want to have some autonomy in the way things that are done, want to create a sense of place. These are things that I certainly understand, having been a community advocate before I even thought about running for office. So I understand that motivation, but recognize that I am not just Lisa Cupid, I'm Chairwoman Lisa Cupid of Cobb County, and I'm going to be an advocate for Cobb County. And so while I'm here to educate, I certainly do not feel a personal slight to be able to speak on behalf of the county that I love, that I've lived in for over 20 years, which I came here to go to school at Georgia Tech, never thought I'd be in this role, thought I'd be serving as an engineer building cars, and here I am helping to build communities. And today, you know, for all that it's worth, we're still here to help bridge and build a community that feels as if there may be some reasons to desire a city. Perhaps there's some things that the county could be doing, should be doing. Maybe there's some things the county cannot do that only a city can do. We'll find out questions to that, we'll find out answers to those questions here tonight. One thing I am going to do, I'm here to educate, but I'm also here to help clarify misinformation. Because as much as I believe that there is a proper and a respectable and reasonable impetus for wanting to see cities, I have a big issue with misinformation being the underlying point about that. So if I address some of those things here tonight, again, it's not to cause an offense to anyone who is pro-cityhood or anyone who is not for cityhood, but it certainly is to clarify information so people can at least understand where I am coming from. And I do not want that to be misrepresented. Nor do I want staff to be misrepresented. And I think it's important for them to be here tonight so you understand how they perceive their operations may be impacted by what is going on here today. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Sorry if I made any of you seasick. Again, I'm not a yeller. I don't really speak very loud, and I will do my best to project to everyone who's here tonight. Thank you.
She's just giving it to me without even introducing me.
I am so sorry. In case you didn't know this young man here, some of you have known him before he joined Cobb County, but he has been with WSB TV, and he is now our beloved communications director, none other.
Beloved.
That's a raise.
Our employed communications director, Ross Cavett.
Thank you. Hey, Krista, are you back there? I may need your help. One thing we want to do is try to get questions from y'all up here somehow, and I don't think we handed out any cards. Did anybody get any cards? So we'll try to get her to facilitate getting the follow. I have a lot already, so we'll be fine to start with. But as we go on, if you have follow-ups or questions, look for the young lady in the checkered jacket, and she'll help get those to me somehow. We'll make it work. And I do have a bunch of questions that I want to kind of feed to these people here, but again, you may have some questions that dovetail off of it, so if you can, we'll try to get those handled the best that we can here this evening. And I will say the chairwoman and Jerica kind of touched on this already. I would say 50% of the questions that we're getting, we can't really answer or address because we're not advocating for one side or the other, and we didn't start this train going down the track. So a lot of the questions in here are my taxes going to go up, or what's going to be better for me in the new city? We really just can't answer those kind of questions. The things we do want to try to answer is from a county perspective, how this will affect county, potentially affect county services. I know there's a lot of unknowns and questions, but along those lines, that's kind of the way we're going to be heading off this evening. And the first question I'm going to send to you, because you started talking about the Vinings vision plan, and one of the questions is, will the county commit to fully implementing the Vinings vision plan?
I've made that commitment many, many times. I adore that vision plan because of how it came about and the work that went into it. And from my understanding, I had a meeting very early on in my term that it was something that people wanted to see the county fully commit to. And so we actually came up with initiatives in order to support making sure that it wasn't just a list of desires on the paper, but how could we implement each of those different aspects. And my counterpart here, which if I'm going to pass the mic down because John Peterson is you'll hear, but over planning, I want each of our staff members to just say who they are and what their area is, and then John, when you receive it, add on to my Vinings vision discussion.
Excuse me, when you speak, could each of you stand when you're speaking?
Sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Drew Ressler. I'm the director of Cobb Department of Transportation.
Hello, I'm Michael Brantley. I'm the director of Parks for Cobb County.
Hi, I'm Bill Volkman. I'm the finance director for Cobb County.
Hello, I'm John Peterson. I'm the zoning division manager for Cobb County. And just to add on to what Commissioner Richardson said, we are committed to the Vinings vision plan. And, trying to think back of all the zonings we had in Vinings, we've had a lot. But in the last few years, there's not been a whole lot of rezonings in Vinings. I think the last one we had was down Paces Ferry Road when they wanted to put in that 6 or 8 story apartment building. And, the staff followed the Vinings vision plan, and the staff recommended denial on it. And that case eventually got withdrawn because it did not meet the Vinings vision plan. So the staff and the elected officials are totally dedicated to the Vinings vision plan and making sure that we're going to follow it.
John, don't drop the microphone because the next one's for you. A lot of questions came in about something called the Unified Development Code, the UDC. How many people in here have heard of the Unified Development Code? It is a process of which will help our staff, and correct me if I'm wrong, plan for and handle zoning and land use cases. Can you speak more about the UDC, what it is, and I have a follow-up.
Sure. What the UDC is going to do, it's going to update and combine our land use documents. It's going to combine and update the zoning ordinance, our design guidelines, and our development standards, and it's going to revise it into one document, because right now all those documents stand alone. And if you try to find a corridor study for anywhere in Cobb County, there's about 12 of them, it's hard to do sometimes. So all that's going to be incorporated into one document. You may have heard that the board picked a vendor last week to do the design guideline, to do the UDC, but that plan has not been submitted to the board yet for final approval. the board gets the final approval of how they're going to do the process, what's going to be in the UDC, how many meetings they're going to have, and things like that. So as far as how it's going to look, I'm not sure how it's going to look yet because the board has not approved how we're going to do the process. But that is in the works, and it's probably going to be coming by the end of this year.
And I'll add on a little bit to that.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. And certainly that is exactly the answer. And I know that I've received other questions related to some of those points, meaning, well, if we don't know what it's going to look like, what does that even mean? What goes into it? What I will share is there are parameters around what is entailed within the UDC. And the whole point is to do exactly that, consolidate so that you don't have a bunch of different sources that staff has to go to in order to make a decision or make a recommendation. But in terms of how the UDC is created, those parameters include a lot of community engagement. It includes, it's not a rewrite in a sense or an overwrite. It's the idea of taking what already exists and consolidating it to a new source. Now, if there are any updates, meaning we have areas in our code that contradict one another, there may be zoning classifications that no longer are used, some that are used, some where a decision may have been made, but it didn't match with what was supposed to be made or how it was supposed to be defined. And we have those different situations that come up. And yes, we do have an annual review where we do those updates, but if you only do those updates incrementally and it's not addressed long term, staff really winds up dealing with a lot of different sources and contradictory pieces. So this is truly meant to consolidate those sources. And then, as I said, there's a lot of community engagement because there are some areas that are looking to have some differences. So to make sure that there are provisions within that one source that would accommodate maybe a new zoning designation for that area. But that is all determined by the community. The other guidelines the other questions that have come in have been around, well, what about the, rural versus suburban versus urban? All of those things have been included within the RFP to include the entire range of development areas. So what we were making sure, or what staff was making sure they were looking for in that RFP or RFQ was that the vendor would not just only be familiar with one type, but be familiar with all of the different types because Cobb County has all of the different types. So hopefully that includes some of the other questions that I know we've received on the topic.
So along those lines, and I am standing up for the record, along the lines, there's a lot of people asking why language like preserve the character of suburban areas and do not expand the allowable uses in residential zoning districts wasn't included in the RFQ. So how would you respond to that, given to what you just said?
Yeah, it's a similar response. That was the idea, was that staff, it's more cryptic than not cryptic, but like more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not surgical, but precise, right? It's an RFQ. So you're asking for specific expertise, meaning when you say rural, suburban, and urban, you're saying that you're looking for someone who has expertise in all of those ranges. It's not necessarily a vision statement, because that is the whole point of the effort, is to make sure that we're consolidating those sources where visions exist across the board. And then the other half of that question?
It was about preserving the character of neighborhoods or something like that?
Which is in there. That language is in the RFQ.
So then,
Stand up and let
yes,
them know
here you
you
go.
won't.
I'm not.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie McMorris. I'm the county manager. And it was brought to our attention that some folk felt that we had left out the suburban characterization of some of the communities. So the community development director went back, and that language is in there. We do tons of RFQs, RFPs, RFIs, and there's no way we can put every single thing in a request for information or request for a proposal. But as a result of that being brought to our attention, it was included in the RFQ. So I just want to clarify that. We listened.
Okay. Give it to Bill. Bill Volkman's our Chief Financial Officer, and there's a lot of questions in there about the funding for the Vinings city in particular. Can you just explain how that works and how that impacts the county?
Sure. All the numbers that we put together are based on the feasibility study. So if you go back and look at the feasibility study for the city of Vinings, it's about $3 million in revenue. And that's primarily broken down by a few key areas. You're looking at franchise fees, occupational taxes, permitting, and then one of the areas that makes Vinings unique is you have hotels located in your city limits, so you do have hotel-motel revenue. So we did look at those impacts, and again, we pulled those numbers straight from the feasibility study to say what would be the impact on Cobb County. And one of the areas that we look at is there's two areas. We said general fund impact versus hotel-motel tax collections. So we view that as any hotel-motel collections that we receive, we have an agreement with the Galleria Authority. They receive 62.5%, we receive the remainder. So we show the net reduction to Cobb County because we understand that it has to be vested in travel and tourism, and there is a component that's by state law that obligates that investment. So the only new revenue that would be proposed is if the city wanted to move forward is basically you'd be paying the same thing that you're paying today. There would be some additional franchise fees, which would be very minor based on our understanding. The county already charges cable. I know the city's looking at possibly electric, telephone, and gas, but those are based on your individual providers. And we had a good conversation with Ross. Some actually already charge that to date, is my understanding, whether you live in a city limit or not. That's correct? Mm-hmm. So that would be something that we would also look at. So the only impact on our side from franchise fees would be cable franchise fees. We wouldn't see any reduction on the other side. And then the other revenue source that would not impact the county whatsoever is the alcohol licensing, because we have 50% goes to the Galleria from us, and the other 50% goes to Board of Ed. So we actually receive no net money from that, so that would, again, not be an impact to the county. Any follow-up on that one?
No, there's just a lot of questions about franchise fees and how the cities can charge some franchise fees that we cannot, correct?
That is correct. So we do, like I said, the additional franchise fees that cities are looking at proposing would be electric, telephone, and natural gas, which we currently do not collect.
Okay. And there's a lot of questions in here I'm not even going to ask you because you can't answer them. So
Okay.
I have one for Drew Ressler. In a prior town hall, we mentioned that state law says, and correct me if I'm wrong, essentially that new cities, when incorporated, take control of the roads unless there's an agreement cut with the county. And they would like to describe what that would look like or how that would come about.
Absolutely. Again, my name is Drew Ressler with Cobb County Department of Transportation. Currently, our department maintains all of the roads and traffic signals within the proposed boundaries of Vinings. That includes 70 or so lane miles of road and a handful of traffic signals throughout. So what I'm able to answer, there are those things that we know, those things we can assume, and those things that we don't know. What we know is state law requires when a new city incorporates that city takes operation control and maintenance of those roadways within the boundary of the city unless otherwise coordinated with the county. And I'll commit now. I know our elected leadership, we're committed to serving the people of Cobb County, whether there are 6 cities or whether there are 10 cities. But some of the details that need to be worked out are in the feasibility study. The franchise fees are allowed for the collection of franchise fees are allowed because of the ownership of the roadway. However, what the feasibility study does not have is how it intends to contract with Cobb County for road maintenance. Road maintenance is not one of the services that are intended to be provided in the feasibility study. But again, the assumption and what's in the feasibility study is that the roads would be owned by the city. And so what would need to be worked out is what that arrangement is and how that would be done to either set up a system to maintain and operate the roadways for the city or to contract with the county for the services that are currently being provided.
Okay, and a follow-up to that, you mentioned the agreement. I mean, what does it look like with other cities in the county?
Currently, regarding transportation, all 6 existing cities maintain their own roadways. So they fill potholes, they take care of the signing and marking, take care of resurfacing, they take care of the roads and the sidewalks within their own cities. There is a mixture on traffic signals where we maintain the traffic signals in 4 of the cities. We do not maintain traffic signals in the city of Marietta or the city of Smyrna. And that agreement is set up in the service delivery strategy that defines who does what and how those services are paid for.
You may want to handle this next question, or the commissioner may want to handle it, but it's got to do with SPLOST and projects that have been planned for that affect this area. What would happen to those if this becomes a city?
I'll speak to the transportation projects. The vast majority of transportation projects in the current SPLOST are infrastructure preservation projects. That's resurfacing of roads, bridges, drainage system failures that we are replacing. It would be, we would work with any city to determine exactly how we would continue to do this, but it is our assumption that we would continue to spend those funds as they were originally intended in the SPLOST program. Moving forward into future SPLOSTs, it would depend on those IGAs with the particular cities at the time that a future SPLOST would be contemplated. But currently, SPLOST revenues are split based on calculation of population between the county unincorporated and each of the cities.
An IGA is?
An intergovernmental agreement.
Thank you. And one of the unknowns, and I don't know who wants to answer this, or Eric Allen's here, you may want to, there's a good amount of time that can elapse from the time the city's incorporated. They have a certain amount of time to actually get their act together. Is that correct? I believe it's 2 years.
I'm sorry. So it'll be 2 years from the referendum to prop up government and work out all the intergovernmental agreements with the county that are needed. Can everybody hear me? No. 2 years from the date of the referendum to negotiate the intergovernmental agreements with the county for the services that will still be covered by the county.
Okay. And I know the police chief's here, but there's a question about police and fire services. You want to handle that one?
It's not in the charter.
Right. But I mean, the question is, if the city becomes a city of Vinings, would they have to pay us for police and fire protection?
So kind of,
Can I ask a question about exactly that? I read Article 8, Section 8:11, and it looked to me like starting 12 midnight, December 24, we got a fully functioning city that we've got to provide for. Is that right?
just for our audience on.
Sure. Is it correct that starting 12 midnight, December 31, 2024, we have a fully functioning city that must be operational? The text says, effective upon the termination of the transition period, the city of Vinings shall be a full functioning municipal corporation and subject to all general laws of the state. And that begins 12 midnight, December 31. Is that what we're saying, 2024?
From 2 years from now, yes.
And it begins January 1, 2023, right? If we went, if the referendum is passed,
But the city council would take.
it begins.
So the way, and it was, yeah, I'm sorry.
I get you.
So my understanding is that the referendum for the city will be on the May ballot.
Correct.
Which will expedite the elections for city council in November.
Correct.
From that point, you'll have until January 1st to 2024 before the city is officially under the operation of the city council mayor and not of the county.
But doesn't it also say that if before that date, the city gives the county proper notice, it can begin earlier?
Oh, there'll be a ton of activities that start. I mean, it's not like you turn on a switch and you have a city government. So there'll be a lot of prep work to get the intergovernmental agreements, to get the council seated, to get them started, to draft an official charter. That has not been done yet. The framework of the charter is in the legislation, but the elected commission or elected city council will have to actually go through the charter process, approve the charter. So there's a lot of prep work that would have to happen between now and January 1, 2024.
And I think one of the unknowns that goes with that, with transportation and everybody else, is in that period, how are certain services going to get paid for? I think that's one of the unknowns that Drew referenced earlier.
Right, and we do have one more question, but I just want to take a pulse check. Do you all have the cards yet? I saw a card get passed
Just
out.
pass one down.
Okay, all right.
So I'm just curious. This all seems, for me, I've lived in Vinings for now 5 years, it seems a little rushed, and I'm wondering, why are we making this decision in the May 24th primary, which is traditionally a lower turnout election? Why would we not even try to make such a momentous decision in the general election? I'm really curious as to how this train got started.
So that was one of the main reasons why I personally voted no for this legislation, because it feeds itself somewhat on, and I'm trying not to get on that slippery slope but just to answer the question, I think you answered effectively the reasons, and it's a shorter window to get information and to be processed as well. So it's very unprecedented. I will say very exemplary to have a referendum less than 40 days after the bill has been passed.
Who can make that happen?
The legislature. That's the way it's written in the bill, and it's voted on. And none of those were written that way originally. 3 of the 4 cities that are being voted on in Cobb were moved to May referenda. The only one that's still in November is the city of Mableton or South Cobb. All 3 of the others were moved to May 24th in committee within a couple of days before they were voted on.
Another question back here.
You didn't answer the question on police and fire.
The question was regarding police and fire. Thank you. So from my understanding, that is not in the charter. And so we will continue providing that service. The other half of that question is, we've talked about the conversations and negotiations that will ensue after the vote if the city passes. And at that point, there could be, any renegotiation of those terms or pickup of any different services. So it's yes, we've got you on the police and fire until further notice. And okay, that was the one.
Good question.
Hi everyone, my name is Whitney Stewart. I'm listening as best as I can back here. I noticed that there was a concern about being rushed on the May 24th election. My question is, if we vote no, is there an opportunity after that point to give us more time to reconsider so that we don't feel as rushed? Or is it all in yes or no, May 24th, and that's it?
Yeah, well, some people would probably say this is the only bite at the apple. Well, it is. Well, technically, it may be. In order for a city to be put on the ballot, there is a 2-year process. So you would have to start that process over next January, which means you would have to introduce enabling legislation. You'd have to go through a completely new feasibility study for that legislation, and then the previous year it could be taken up for a vote. So, for example, this legislation that you're voting on, or that allowed the referendum for this year, started last year, because it's a 2-year process before it can even be brought to the floor for a vote. So the short answer is yes, but the long answer is not likely anytime soon after a referendum fails. Yeah, well, we've seen some come back, so we'll see.
My question is, are we here to listen to what Cobb County is going to do, or are we here to listen to what the city of Vinings will do? I think people want answers, and right now I feel like we're just getting a lot of talk. And for instance, you know, can you give an answer? Is it going to raise our taxes? Well, we don't know. And then another question. Well, we don't know. So people, how are we supposed to vote if all the answers we're getting is we don't know?
So let me address that because I know the county can't advocate for or against, and I'm not advocating for or against either, but that's part of the problem with this being rushed. Is there's not that conversation, and no one can answer that question except for the 4 city council members who have not even put their name on a ballot to run. So that question can't be answered until the city is propped up. What you're technically voting on is, as a community, do you want to form a government that is self-governing within the boundaries that you see on that map? Everything else is technically an unknown. We don't know if the 4 members you elect will raise taxes. We don't know if the 4 members you elect will lower taxes. So there is, just by nature of this process, a lot of unknowns, which is why we typically don't see it go from passing the legislature to a referendum within a 45-day window.
Well, wouldn't it still be unknown 2 years later?
But you would have a lot more time to have those conversations.
2 years later, do you have the 4 elected?
Yeah, yes.
No, you won't have them either.
No, I'm saying you will not know. I'm saying yes, so you will not know if you waited a year to do it. But you would have more conversation. That's my only comment on that.
And I'll follow up to what he said from a county perspective, that I don't know if y'all are aware, by the immutable laws of the state of Georgia, we cannot use taxpayer resources to advocate on a referendum, one way or the other. So that puts us, the commissioner, the chairwoman, and myself, and everybody else up here, in that box where we can only talk about certain things. And that's about what we know as county officials to educate you all. A lot of, like I said, half the questions I got would take us out of that box. So that's why there may be some frustration here tonight. I understand when we come to you and ask you to approve a SPLOST, for instance, the county's asking you to approve a 1 cent increase in taxes. I understand why we shouldn't then be advocating, going out and saying, vote yes for SPLOST. We can just tell you what's on the list. It's up to you to decide. This is a referendum, though, that we did not bring before you, but we're still in that same box by the laws of Georgia. That's why there's a lot of questions in here that we can't answer. And now, Ron Siphon.
Thanks, Ross. Okay, I want to come back to the UDC question, and this is going to get back to your question about what is Cobb County going to do. On the UDC question, I have a copy of the original RFQ, and Cobb County amended the RFQ in December, and I went through open records. I have a copy of that RFQ. The language that we asked about is not included in either of those RFQs. I got copies of it. So did y'all make a further recent amendment to the RFQ that I don't have a copy of, in which case I would like to get a copy of it? And if you made a further amendment to the RFQ after late December, when did you make that, and why have you not let anybody else know about it before tonight? Thank you.
Could you describe what question are you saying it was or wasn't in there?
Okay, the original RFQ and the new RFQ, the second RFQ, both say that Cobb County is going to protect the character of rural areas, but neither of those said that they would protect the character of suburban areas. And we further asked that the RFQ be specific in saying that Cobb County would not use this as an opportunity to expand the allowable uses in the residential zoning districts. Up until tonight, Cobb County has taken the position that they refuse to make those 2 amendments to the RFQ. Request for qualifications.
Right.
Commissioner
so,
Richardson,
Ron, I'm going to address
explain
this. I'm going to address this real quickly because, quite frankly, it has nothing to do with Cityhood. No, it does not. It does not. Let me answer the question. When we answered the question about what does the UDC include, remember, he just answered that. Yes. It is, you got 5, 6, 7, 8 documents, right? And it's unified means to bring them together, to codify. And we also said that we would have focus groups, town halls on it, open houses on it where people can come in and share their thoughts about it. We did go back and look at it. We're not hiding anything. There was no significant revision to it because staff did not see where there was anything that said that we would not protect the character of.
You just said you added it.
What I did say, what Ron wanted was suburban in there. Suburban is in there. It is.
What does it say?
I don't have, I don't have. Okay, Ron, you can have the document. We did listen to you. We did go back and look at it and say, what is it in this document that says that we are going to change the character of any community? There was nothing in there that said that. Here's what was the impetus for the UDC. And John, you keep me honest here. One of the things that we were saying is that if somebody called us and asked us about something, whether it was lighting, typically you may have to go to 4 or 5 different places to answer that question about what does a code allow or what would a subdivision allow for particular lighting in a subdivision, for example, or a convenience store where the lighting may be at the top and it's shining into the bedrooms of folks' homes in a community, because those kinds of things. We had to go to 4 or 5 different places to address that one thing. And we've never had, probably in 50 years, one codified place that you can go find information about certain things. That was the impetus for the Unified Development Code. It did not have any, we were going to do it anyway outside of any of this cityhood discussion, Ron. We were going to do that. I can tell you when I hired our community development director, Rob and I, and we talked about innovation. What could we be doing in Cobb? That question came up when we interviewed her 3 or 4 years ago. And she said, one of the things I think we can do better or differently in Cobb to help you find things within our code, to help our staff find things in our code, is to have a unified, codified place to go find it. But if you want to say that you want to be a city because of the unified code, you can do that. But do understand, there's nothing we have to hide at all. And Ron, you and I and the chair, and you've had conversations on this many, many times. There is nothing. You have a Vinings vision. The board has said they're committed to that vision. There is nothing we're trying to do to change the character of Vinings or any other part of the county. You have made that a primary issue. But we have not said we were going to do anything like that, nor hide any major changes in the RFQ. But Jessica did listen to you. We listened to what you all said, and we said, okay, we will make sure that we rewrite that one area that was a concern for you. We will agree to disagree.
Is suburban in it or not?
The word suburban does not appear in the amendment.
John, do you happen to recall it since it's in your area?
They did not address the
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not here to be. I don't have it with me, but it is available. Ron says he has a copy.
So
go ahead and give it to her. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I want to get back to some order because we do have questions that
Many
are popping
questions
up.
to answer.
And I will let you go ahead and ask your question. There are some other things I'll ask because I heard murmurs with UDC will readdress that piece.
Number one, can we get some more air in here? It is so incredibly hot.
Can we get some air? We don't
Air
control it,
conditioning.
but if there's anybody back there with the thermostat.
Serious question. Is it possible that we could just hear pros and cons of a city or not a city?
Yeah.
Make it real simple, not a lot of stuff. Thank you.
She wants pros and cons of a city. You want to repeat what she said.
So regarding the question about pros and cons, it's certainly a conversation that has to be organized between the pro-cityhood advocates and the county, and that has not been able to manifest as a venue, okay? But that is also something that as a constituent or as a resident, you can also drive, because I know that there are a lot of those that are interested in seeing the city and those that are not. And so what other areas have done is self-hosted some of those events in order to provide those platforms so that you can have a more.
Should that be done by the county?
We cannot.
But without stating an opinion, can't you just outline what you believe the pros and cons are?
We cannot.
State law says we cannot. State law says we cannot.
Right. Now I will say this. As an individual, as a person, I do have.
Here, we don't want your opinion. We just want to know what are the pros and cons, and have the city speak to county and listen to what they are, so we can make judgments.
So
we don't care what you think. We just want to hear.
Yeah. So it's something that the community can request.
He read part of my question about the road maintenance, which was this franchise thing, because if you do look at the franchise study, it says we got the franchise revenue, but there's no line item about road. This gentleman said, we're entitled to general fund money. So I'd like him to address the fact that everybody's, and I'm still trying to make up my mind, but everybody is saying, well, God, are we gonna have to pay for our police? We have to pay for that. Is it gonna be extra charge? So if you'll speak to the issue as to how much general fund revenue.
I kind of made eye
will
signal to
cover
say
us.
if you want to say anything, you're welcome to. As a constituent, those types of conversations.
That's real important.
Hi, I'm Bill Riley. What's going to occur upon the cityhood? You have 2 years of transition. Under the charter and under state law, the county has to provide services at actual cost for the 2-year period. That means for police services, if you're paying more for police services than you're getting right now, that should be reduced in the terms of the cost to you for police services. In fire services, that would be the same thing. Your cost should be reduced. The county pays for police services under the general fund. The county pays for public works and roads under the general fund. The county pays for fire services under a special service district. So if you were to determine you wanted to stay in the fire service, you could stay under the special service district. You would be allowed to do that, and you would continue to pay the millage rate on the special service district. If you determined you at some point in time in the future want to do the public roads, then it would be part of the county could no longer charge you for doing the roads, which would mean that you would be entitled to that part, or the city would be entitled to that part of the general fund billing that you pay to be rebated back to the city for the purpose of the city to pay for the public roads. And it's the same for all the other services, community development services, the partial part of the finance department that is overseeing those services that you're taking up, you're entitled to either rebate it. And that's because of the legislative scheme that the county presently uses. Many counties have a special service district for city kinds of services. The Cobb County chooses not to do so. But what you would get a rebate, or the city would get the money back to provide the services. Those are the things that be in terms of negotiation. You are not allowed to be charged twice for the same services. So if you take up the services, the county can no longer charge you for them. And under the...
Would y'all take them up, can it be business as usual?
That's
the issue. Can you be a city and not a city and say, well, we're not gonna, we just keep it the way it is. All we want is our zoning and our whatever. And just decline everything else and keep it the way it is. We'll pay your county tax, leave us alone.
Under the intergovernmental agreement, that would be something that would be subject to a negotiation.
Well,
But
there's one of the questions.
well,
Would you consider us just saying, keep doing what you're doing, we're just gonna take some.
You know, the analysis really would be, are they making money off of it, or are they losing money off of it?
Well, we should be proportionate, they're losing off everybody in the county.
Well, the question is, if some people in the county pay less per person for police services than other persons in the county. And so the analysis that they would, I would assume, make would be the analysis, or do they make more money, continue to provide the services and take your general fund taxes, or not? If they didn't, there could probably be a balancing act between the services they got and the service they didn't. If the county, which I have no reason to believe they would not, are like what happened in Peachtree Corners in Gwinnett County, they worked out an agreement where everybody was happy. The county provided the services they were best at, the city provided the services that they were best at, and Peachtree Corners presently runs with a 0 millage rate. A 0 millage rate for 50,000 people.
What percent of Peachtree Corners is commercial?
Excuse me?
What percent?
No, you're good, you're good.
It's not a good idea to have the random.
And hold on, guys. I want to keep some amount of order so that we can all walk away with information. Thank you for sharing, certainly. And as I mentioned before, as residents, you're welcome to ask anything. So if you're, wherever you're leaning, you're welcome to, the same way this gentleman did, propose those things. I know that there are certain questions that were framed there that I would like for staff to just touch on a little bit that were open.
Commissioner Richardson, I just wanted to touch on one point, and perhaps again, this is me speaking as an advocate for Cobb County. I'm speaking as, an advocate for Cobb County, and when I hear the term used as a scheme, that kind of is like nails on a chalkboard to me. Our service delivery agreement between the county and the cities has been a negotiated agreement between our county and cities because they have enjoyed a good working relationship. The reason it is the way that it is not because the county has anything to gain from that relationship more than a city has anything to gain. When we talk about being willing to work with new cities, it is because we expect that if any new cities were to come on board, we, in good faith, would work with a new city as we work with our current cities. So again, I'm not trying to take anything away from his response about how revenue could go from a city and how revenue goes to a county, but I get concerned when we start making digs about some things that are perhaps perceived to be a little bit adversarial or underhanded that are not that way. We are coming up and having to renegotiate our service delivery strategy with the cities. This will be the first time that this board will have done so because we do this every 10 years. We will have opportunity to work in good faith with our cities, as Cobb County has always done, to figure out how we deliver these services. And that would be my commitment. But the thing is, as this process gets going, you just don't know who the leaders will be at the table, right? So I can tell you one thing, they can tell you one thing. The reality is elections, come every 4 years. You just don't know who is going to be there. Things may change, and that's just the true reality, and that's the nature of the beast.
So I just want to address another thing too, real quick, because the analogy to Peachtree Corners was brought up. And I think there are two important things that we have to look at with that. Everything was said was absolutely true. However, the tax mix from residential to commercial is extremely different at Peachtree Corners. One of the other issues that I had with a couple of the cities in Cobb is that there is not a stronger mix of the commercial tax versus the residential.
Okay, Eric, I'm going to stop you though. Hold on. It's true, you're true, but we just don't want to be on the side of again.
Well, I'm just saying the two. But someone had the clarification of that though with the Peachtree Corners.
Okay.
And the other thing is that there's also the economies of scale of a city that has over 50,000 residents versus one that would have 6,000 to 7,000. So, once again, I just wanted to clarify on those two things that it's the same but it's different.
And what I'll share is he is here as a constituent, and certainly, not as a representative, not held to the same requirement that the county is held to. So as constituents, you are welcome. I think there were a couple of things, I don't know if you all remember some of the things he had shared, but I think there were some things that related to finance.
So what the gentleman was referring to was our House Bill 49 agreements with the cities, which I believe the commissioner and the chairwoman already addressed. That's the negotiated, sorry. Is this better? Better, okay. Come in front. All right, there you go. So make sure you can hear me. Okay, everybody good? Okay. So what the gentleman was referring to was our House Bill 49 agreement, which is the duplication of services with us and the cities. It's a negotiated agreement between the county and the cities for duplication of services. So as this gentleman asked about, yes, you currently pay for police and fire services. The feasibility study does not propose police or fire services within the city of Vinings. You'd continue to pay the county for that. We'd continue to provide that service to you. When we're talking about any duplication of services, so for example, community development, which the city is proposing, that would have to be a negotiation between the city and the county as we move forward to decide what that is, because you're absolutely correct, you cannot be charged twice for the same service. But that assumes that you're getting charged in property tax for all of those services, which all those services have additional fees. So there would be a negotiation. It's not a true, hey, yes, everything that you pay for and the services you provide are provided through property taxes. That is not necessarily the case. If you have community development, they do have fees proposed within the city for community development. So you will be collecting revenue associated with that. So that is kind of how we would approach that, and it would obviously be a negotiation. As the chairwoman and the commissioner said, that happens every 10 years. So we do that with every city that we have within the county, whether Vinings becomes a city or not, it would still be a part of a conversation the county would have each and every 10 years. So I hope that clarifies some of those questions. Sir, I want to make sure I got all of them. Good? Good? Okay.
Scale economy, you theoretically could deliver the services cheaper than we can for most of them.
So
can you be a city or not really be a city?
So he was just asking for scale of economy. So again, we're not going to get into police and fire because the city is currently not proposing those services today. So the city of Vinings is not one of those that is looking at public safety. So we've already addressed some of the services that you will be providing.
What services would the city be required to provide if we receive franchise fees? Can you give us an idea?
So the franchise fees, as our DOT director stated, is typically for road maintenance. So that would be a negotiation between the city and the county as how that would be handled. Okay.
That's not how franchise fees are calculated on a statewide basis. And it's not by road mileage, and it's not by who owns the roads.
Sir?
We've been told when this all came about that that study was made by the University of Georgia that showed that this area paid more out than it received from the county. So I can't believe that study is somewhere hidden. I'd like to see I think we'd all like to see the details of that study. And we can't make any decisions unless we have our own people, somebody that, or a bunch of people get together and decide, well, what would we have to pay for an office here in the city? What would we have to pay for these negotiated things? And I'm going to tell you, being in the middle of a negotiation with Cobb County, I feel like I'm sort of going to have a tough place to be negotiating with the county because, you know, what do we have to negotiate with? You got all the cards. We don't have any cards. So I'd like to have a right now conversation with the county about that. And as a financial person for the county, you've already done a study to see exactly what we're talking about. And I'd like to have a copy of that. I mean, you're a financial person. We plan ahead. We know what these numbers are. You need to share that with us.
So all the financial graphs are on cobbcounty.org/cityhood. All his information's on there. And it has been for a couple months now, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There are multiple.
I have a zoning question. On the Cityhood website, they mentioned that the bullet points they gave for the reasons for forming a city are to ensure that all zoning efforts are decided locally, to stop high-density development that causes traffic and crime to rise, to create more community green space, walking trails, bike paths, and parks, and they also mentioned code enforcement. Just help me, educate me. Aren't all of these zoning issues? Isn't that just one issue? I don't know. Please tell me.
Fair. And for you, and then I'll tap in.
As far as all the community development issues you've mentioned, the code enforcement. Oh, okay. As far as all the issues you mentioned regarding code enforcement, how we do zoning and things like that, it's all done right now through a bunch of different departments in community development that are in charge of those certain areas. So, as far as how the city's going to do it, I'm not sure how the city's going to do it. But I do know when Cobb County does it, it does it very efficiently, and it does it very responsibly. So when we get a code enforcement complaint, we open a case on it and we follow through on it. So either the case will end up with a citation or we'll get rid of the case.
Okay, so my question though is, these four things that are mentioned, aren't those all really zoning? Are those four different issues, or are those all really just one issue of zoning?
It's all under community development, all four of those things.
So what? Yeah, so just to add on as well, the reason why we've got multiple numbers here is because there's a bit of interrelation, certainly with the finance side, and then also parks. You mentioned the additional green space. That is parks, and can be DOT at times, depending on what the project is. Certainly, one of the commitments, if you haven't seen, I have a website called d2cobb.com, which is I made it just for constituents. You can see every single priority, every single issue, every single decision that I'm advocating for as your commissioner, as your representative, and what we are certain. You can see all the progress reports and the town halls that are tied to how we're getting there. One of those things that I'm really focused on, and I'm going to give the mic to you after that, is making sure that there is more park space in Vinings. And when we had that original conversation about the Vinings vision, it was, like I said, how do you turn those projects into real manifested items that you can continue to enjoy as residents? How can we continue to set those expectations, streamline how we implement that, and make sure that everyone's aware that those different options are even available in the first place? So just to share with you, there are several groups that are involved in this particular Cityhood initiative. It doesn't include the other areas like public safety per se, but it certainly includes public services, certainly includes aspects of DOT, finance, and obviously you mentioned it's community development, it's zoning, planning, and all of the fees and licenses that go along with that aspect. I'm going to hand the mic over to Michael just to talk about his area.
That web address you said you sent?
D2 Cobb. So it's like District 2, so D for District 2 Cobb.com. And you can see everything.
Just a point of clarification, does the Vinings vision cover this whole area that the Cityhood does?
It covers all of Vinings.
It covers everything. It covers everything except for this right here. So
Why is that part of Vinings?
I couldn't answer that question. I'm not sure why it's on the map.
Anybody can answer. Why is that part of Vinings? So the Vinings vision covers what area?
It covers basically all this except for down here where you have the Georgia Power. No, I'm sorry. It covers all this except for this down here.
It covers what Vinings is today. That's all.
That's right.
That's it.
And just a little bit outside of railroad tracks, and just a little bit outside.
Everybody, hold on.
Exactly what it is.
Okay, all right. Settle a little bit. One moment, I'm gonna let Michael say his part, then I'm gonna come get your questions.
Again, I'm sorry, I'm Michael Brantley. I'm the Director of Parks here for Cobb County.
The commission, sorry. I may have to walk around too. I'll walk up and down the aisle too, as long as I don't make anybody sick. I'm Michael Brantley. I'm the director of parks. Sort of the same thing that the commissioner talked about. You know, one of the things that we look at, there's not a lot of parkland in Vinings. We know that. There's just not. We have the trolley line park, and then you've got the Vinings Jubilee property. The Vinings Jubilee property, technically, it's a detention pond. Everybody knows that. But trolley line park is what we have. It's one of those things that, you know, sooner or later you start running out of land. It's happening everywhere in Cobb County. It's happening more in Vinings simply because of what it is. But there's land that is running out everywhere. We've purchased land over the last two park bonds in 2006 and 2008, about $67 million worth of parkland. Now, all of those get nominated. So everything gets nominated as to be sold. Now, I was not here for the 2006 nor the 2008 park bond. The 06 park bond happened around 06, 07, 08. Then 08, they passed another park bond. What happened right after that? The recession hit. So they did not do those bonds until 2017. So I got here in late 2017. They had already started the process, but in both times, properties were nominated and there was a committee formed. That committee looked at all of the properties, looked at all of the land that they could purchase, and then started to make offers. Some people said, we want X amount. The county can only pay appraised value. So what happens is somebody wants X amount, we can only pay Y, we have to walk away. So there's places around Cobb County that just don't have that land that you would like. Now, that's something that we have to work on, you know, as Cobb County, and we continue to have to work on that around the county. It's not just in Vinings, it's everywhere. It's in East Cobb area, it's in Northwest Cobb area, it's a Southwest Cobb area. It's everywhere that we've got to work on that.
Michael, this is a technical question on that very point. Are you allowed, if there's a specific vision plan, are you allowed to use eminent domain to take the property to deliver the plan that was anticipated?
Parks will never do that. He's talking about eminent domain. Now, the county can do that, but I'm the parks guy. Sorry, I'm the parks guy. I will not do it. Now, you can talk to the county officials and elected officials to look at that, but I would not do that. That is just me. I'm not doing that. I build places for people to go to have a good time. I'm not going to take over somebody's homestead for 50 years just so I can make a couple of people feel good. That's just not me. I'll try to find other places.
Matt, I think there was a question.
Oh, sorry.
Here.
Oh, sorry.
You take the, okay.
All right. Saying parks, yeah, we'd like to have a park right here in Vinings, but you're telling us we don't have the property. Exactly. So what would be the advantage? Are we gonna get in our car and drive 30 miles for a park because it's on the outer skirts of Cobb County? So if you're pushing these things for Vinings, the people that live in Vinings, we want to know what we get, not what the other parts of Cobb County gets.
They're not pushing it.
No, I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm trying to understand, and I stood up a while ago, is I don't feel like I'm getting any answers myself as to whether to vote yes or whether to vote no. It's all of this technical talk, in my opinion.
Right, it's Wait. So I'm going to go ahead and just address the general thing again here, where there is a request for pros and cons. There are two ways to see that happen between those that live here who want a city, those that live here who don't want a city. That can be something certainly driven by the residents. Or if there is a way for the pro-cityhood movement to coordinate with the county, it's still not a pro versus con conversation, but it can be where there's maybe some more dialogue that is able to happen. Go ahead.
My question is not about parks, is about the map. How or why is that lower southern part part of the proposed city of Vinings? Because I don't believe most people consider that Vinings. And how were the council districts drawn? Because those don't seem equitable based on either land or population.
Circle Vinings.
So, I think as a comment to this, Ron has a comment that he would like to make to address that, to add on to that question. Mike. All right, everybody, settle.
All right, a lot of people are asking about this whole section.
Hold on, guys.
A lot of people are asking about this whole section down here. Why did this get added to the proposed city of Vinings? The concept of the city of Vinings was based on, we want to be sure that in the future that we don't have adverse impacts to Vinings when it comes to zoning. 2 years ago, Cobb County proposed a redevelopment plan for this whole area called CP-2-1 of 2020. We had a huge campaign in Vinings against it. Those of you who are on my email list probably sent emails. So Cobb County, because of public outrage of this proposal, agreed to postpone that plan. They never agreed to cancel it. And I've tried for the last 2 years to get Cobb County to cancel it, and I keep getting told, we have no immediate plans to do this. Okay, no immediate plans. The problem is, this may not be pretty, but it produces incredibly low traffic volume per acre. The plan in question was going to put this in Regional Activity Center, which produces the highest possible traffic volume per acre. This could literally, if this were redeveloped as Regional Activity Center, it could literally increase the traffic coming from this area by 100 times. It's that big of a difference. Part of that is because this is so low traffic per acre right now.
85% of that land is
Hold
owned
on.
by Georgia Power.
Hold on.
85%.
Hold on. Please direct
The plan
questions
was the plan.
towards, guys.
The plan was the plan. And this area right here used to be industrial, and the reason it's high-density residential right now is because Joe Thompson had a redevelopment plan for this area.
Okay.
This can redevelop, and
Ron. Okay, hold on, guys.
that's the reason it's included.
Okay, so, hold on, guys. Hold on. So, what I would like is, when we do have constituents provide additional comments in order to accommodate some of the concerns, when we have questions, please direct questions towards this table to keep a little bit of decorum. The second thing is what was discussed was around a redevelopment plan that's a part of that lower piece. I'm going to frame that as a question. Is there a redevelopment plan for that lower piece? As your District 2 Commissioner, I am unaware, I have not seen or heard of that redevelopment plan.
It doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
I understand, but I'm saying as the District 2 Commissioner.
Yes, I will share. If something has a CP associated with it, that was probably considered as part of a comprehensive plan initiative. Anything in this area for District 2 would have come through the District 2 Commissioner at that time. That commissioner is not here. So to put it on her to be responsible. So I'm not speaking to you generally. It does, today, it does not, if she is not aware of it and she's the District 2 Commissioner, it does not exist.
So, no. There is, as it stands today, because obviously there is nothing that I am proposing except for the Vinings vision. The Vinings vision is what I'm committed to, and I've been using it as a model because I want to see master plans around the county. So that has been one of the initiatives. If you go to D2 Cobb, that's one of the initiatives that I'm pushing for, is that it's not just the master plan that exists as a wonderful guideline for staff, but that it's also codified. Meaning those become the design guidelines for how we move. And the idea is that it's sourced from the community. So that was one of my first commitments that I made, especially after sitting with residents within Vinings HOA, and I'm just trying to give you a little bit of insight into what has transpired. And I don't know if, John, you want to add anything to that area? There is a comprehensive plan going on now because it happens every so often. And we have to update that comprehensive plan, and those updates come from the community. Yes, the district commissioner can make recommendations, but my entire process is predicated on community input, and so is the comprehensive master plan.
And just to add on what Commissioner Richardson just talked about, there are no plans to drastically change Vinings at all. We follow the comprehensive plan and the Vinings vision plan in making zoning decisions, and the staff and the board has been very consistent following those two documents. So there's no plan afoot to put high-density residential in places where it doesn't belong in Vinings. Yes, sir.
If something has a if it's a CP plan and it's not in the comprehensive plan, it does not exist. And we're updating it right now. So if you want to make sure it doesn't exist, this is a plug to be engaged in our comprehensive plan amendment process today. But the public will have an opportunity to view that document as it's being created, and you can see for yourself, as there are questions around transparency, if that is put in there. And I can assure you, if your district commissioner is not advocating for it, it is highly unlikely you're going to see that be reversed.
And before, because I know she came up a while back, and then come to you, that's okay?
Mine is just a clarification for Ron's talking about the property. 90% of those 385 acres are owned by Georgia Power. Is that not true? Coal ash fields, it backs up to Sterigenics. So that is not developable property. Right. And I just wanted to make sure we had that point out there.
I have a very specific question. It seems like, I don't want to speak for anyone, but that most of the proponents are in favor of the city are doing so because of this community development and zoning issue. That seems to be the primary issue. And so I have a question that's specific. Has the county ever ceded zoning decisions to an area that is not a city? Is that something that's ever been done before? Could we accomplish the same thing with the city and without a city as it relates to community development, or not?
We don't have the law behind us. Yes. But we don't have the law behind us.
Well, and just to answer that question, the community development part is something that the city's proposing, so they're going to take it all over, no matter what. So there will be no commingling of the county and the city doing community development together. It's going to be one or the
I
other.
understand. I'm just wondering, though, has the county ever said, hey, Vinings, you're great folks, we're going to let you vote on the zoning for Vinings without us being a city? Is that possible? I'm just saying.
Communities get engaged in zoning every day and have the ability to have a strong influence in the outcome of a zoning decision. You have, Vinings has communities that have been engaged, East Cobb, Mableton. So yes, you don't make the final determination. The only body that does that is the Board of Commissioners, but the Board of Commissioners tends to put community engagement in those zoning decisions at a premium because those communities are going to be the ones most directly impacted by a zoning decision.
Aren't there public hearings?
There are public hearings. That doesn't mean that you might not have half a community that wants one thing and half a community that doesn't want it. Sometimes you walk in there, you make as many friends as you make enemies. But the community overall has a very strong influence when you're organized.
Right. And
so
to that point,
and you are.
Yes. To that point, and you're absolutely right. The authority does rest within the commissioner's hands because we were elected to fulfill that obligation. And so if you ever go to any of our zoning hearings, basically everything that comes out of our mouth is a legal document. It is a very interesting dynamic of engagement and how we have to go about making decisions and how we have to even structure our statements and motions in order to make sure that we're doing something that is proper and does not overturn anyone's rights. We have to balance that. But as a community, as a part of the process that I've put in place, and certainly I've had predecessors that have done the same, I have colleagues that do the same, is to coordinate directly with the community groups. So Vinings HOA is really my lead into. When there's a case that comes up, guess who gets it? Vinings HOA. They see it many times before I see it. When I get it, I like to be the last person to look at it because there are when an application is filed by anybody, right, owner, developer, whatever, when an application is filed, staff takes a look at it, the planning commissioner takes a look at it, the community I try to set up governing structures, right, people that can work on it and be committed to looking at all of the ins and outs, that all of those eyes touch it. There are so many changes that happen that by the time it gets to me, I know where there are issues, where there are not. I may call another meeting to bring different parties together, see what we can do, because like I said, everything I say is a legal document. So I have to take into consideration the property rights, I have to take into consideration the precedent, I have to take into consideration everything that the community has said, desires, wants, and the best part about it is we get to fall back on all of these wonderful design guidelines, which is why I'm pushing to codify some of these master plans so that they can be even more, they can be stronger when I do make my decisions. So now the truth is, you never know who's representing you, right? Maybe you voted for me, maybe you didn't. That's what happens in representation. That's what's gonna happen whether it's a city or any other type of entity that you create. And so no matter what, if there is something you don't want to see in your community, say it. Find out how to say it. And hopefully the person that's representing you has a pathway for you to do so.
We got a couple more questions and then we got to wrap up.
Yes.
We
Okay,
have
understood.
2 people, this gentleman here, lady, and this, but quickly, it's almost 8 o'clock.
Fantastic, thank you.
And I also want to say to those watching online, I apologize. Not only do we not have AC down here, we don't have Wi-Fi, so I can't pull down your questions.
Thank you. I'm Gloria Givens. I've lived in Vinings about 10 years. My husband and I have 4 small children. We're very invested in the community. I've lived in Cobb County most of my life, so I'm also invested in Cobb. I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate your final thoughts. I've had a question from the beginning, though. With the Vinings vision, I appreciate your commitment and your public commitment even to us tonight about that. I think that the Vinings vision really is part of what makes Vinings special, and as a community member, I haven't seen those things upheld. I haven't seen the history of Vinings upheld. I've seen, in my opinion, excess land development. I've seen some issues, and so what would you recommend? If you propose us staying in the county, how do we be concerned, proactive citizens and get what we need for our area of Cobb County?
So I'm going to answer you as your commissioner. And certainly, different answers, different representatives, different processes. There are a couple of things that are in place for you to do exactly that. So my calendar, stand up for me. This is my right-hand deputy commissioner, Aaliyah. If you ever email the office, you probably got a response from Aaliyah. I mean, she is amazing and helps field those things. You email the office, she's going to make sure that whatever prioritization needs to happen on that topic, if it needs to be escalated, it escalates to my desk. If it goes to staff, that's the fastest way to resolve it because our staff is absolutely incredible and amazing, and they love this county. And, I just really appreciate that. So when you have those types of concerns, you can do that. What she will also respond to you with, if it's not something she can directly relate to staff, she's going to say, by the way, here is the link to book the commissioner's calendar. My calendar is open to the public. If you go to d2cobb.com and you click schedule, there is no red tape to talk to me. You just click, book, and I'll show up. on a call, on a Zoom, whatever your heart desires, that is what you're requesting on my open calendar. And I will talk about absolutely anything, and if I don't know the answer, I will say I don't know the answer, and I'll go find the answer out. If I do know the answer, I will tell you the answer. So that's another way to have that direct conversation. Another way is I've stood up a cabinet. So that it's a community cabinet, and these are resources for you to engage with, that if you have any aspirations, zoning, housing, infrastructure, transportation, mobility, we have a lot of water issues in certain areas of our county. Certainly here, there are some issues as well. If it's parks or whatever it is, you can find someone on that list, contact them, and as my cabinet, they will help me develop initiatives to push into the community so that I'm actually able to put the power back into your hands. Why? Because as a commissioner, we discussed earlier with the zoning decisions, I have powers that are within me being elected, within me being an elected official. So in order to share that and allow you the opportunity to create those changes, we just get it done. Thank you.
He's been standing
Yes.
forever.
Quick question, changing gears. The election for Vinings, whether it should become a city or not, is coming up pretty quickly in May. And also for East Cobb, Lost Mountain. But in light of the lawsuits that have been filed against Vinings, for example, becoming a city, will that stop this vote from being on the May ballot? What's going to happen? Are we going to be able to vote on it or not?
So
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know how
bring
fast the
Erica.
law moves.
There's nothing that we can really say too much on that except.
Anticipating this question, the legal department gave me an answer. They declined to appear in person, but here's what they told me to say. Cobb County has no legal authority to represent the interests of private citizens. However, its legal position in Young versus Cobb County suit is that it should be dismissed. Unless the referendum is passed and HB 840 becomes effective, there's not an active or justiciable dispute, as courts do not have jurisdiction to decide the merits of a constitutional challenge to proposed legislation.
Hey, everybody.
Alan. He's the lawyer that's brought the lawsuit.
Oh, yeah, I'm James Warren. I live on Woodland Grove Drive. One question, does the new city, would it have the right, because somebody mentioned eminent domain, to use eminent domain for green space? Can anybody answer that question?
Is it still going to be on the ballot? But that's the lawyer sitting right there. It will, but then will they come after
So
us after
I'll
that?
say what the county does is when eminent domain is a last resort for projects that have a general public benefit, So there are some legal restrictions over what constitutes that general public benefit, and that would be best left to an attorney regarding green spaces. As far as the county, we only use it for general transportation projects.
Right. But I believe the city and the county and the state of Georgia can do that if they desire. Correct? I'm asking the legislature.
Technically, yes, but once again, that'll be something decided by your 4 city council members and your mayor.
So the city, whoever we elect, if they want to do green space, which is very popular in their thing, they could use eminent domain to tax all of us. Additionally, to buy the land.
Yes.
They got to raise the money somewhere, right?
Will it be on the ballot or not? I don't know what he said.
All right, so apologies, sir, but we're after the 8 o'clock time period, so I really do need to wind down this event. I had a fantastic, I can't, even though I love that question. I appreciate all of you so much for coming out, asking questions. Hopefully, if you didn't get everything answered, hopefully you got something. But it really was our best attempt to try to provide you with answers to the questions that you're asking as best as we know. Please continue to send in your questions. We look at every single one of them and try to decipher them. Thank you again. Do you want to say a thank you for coming out?
I think it was a good meeting. There are some things that Cobb County could not talk about, but this wasn't a pro-city or anti-city meeting. This was about information from Cobb County. My last request is, we had a bunch of volunteers that came out and set up all these chairs. If you guys could fold up the chairs and stack them against the wall over there, we have to put them in that closet. It would appreciate your help, because we came at 4:30 today to put these chairs out, and I don't want to be here till 11 o'clock. Thank you.